Hello everyone! So finally I'm doing this video, which I've been meaning to do for years now, because this trip was actually in 2020. It was just before the pandemic hit. I think it was a couple of days before I was due to fly out that on the news, people were slowly talking about this sort of COVID thing. And I was actually debating whether or not to go on this trip. But I had a look and, there weren't any cases in Nepal yet. So I thought, right, I'm going to go for it. And I'd been looking for a volunteer type, well, it's not really a holiday trip, for about 3 years previously. I wanted to not only sort of immerse myself into someone else's culture, but I wanted to give something back. So I actually worked in a school teaching children English, even though their English was already absolutely superb. But it was interesting sort of setting up little classes for them, and like colouring and cutting out and sort of craft days was so much fun. And of course I did take my braiding kit with me, and I didn't even realise quite how popular it would be. But after school there was always like a line or a queue of children waiting to get their hair braided. So for me it was just wonderful that I could sort of give that back to them, and make them look pretty and make little hair clips and stuff for them as well. So yeah, it was amazing. I have actually got a story which I will save until the end, which happened at the very end of the trip, which was quite interesting. Not funny, but now looking back, it's it's definitely a fascinating story. Let's just leave it at that. Unfortunately, I didn't actually take my phone with me, because at that point it was a brand new phone and I was just a little bit worried about it getting stolen or taken or me losing it. So I haven't got a huge amount of footage, but I did manage to get some from a girl that I met there. I shared a room with her, and guess where she was from? The UK. And we still keep in touch now. So I've got a couple of videos that she took, just so you can see the landscape. But yeah, we'll get into the video. The first part is basically just me packing. Okay, hello everyone. I'm about to embark on a rather amazing adventure, and I thought I would film it because when I was looking on YouTube, I was trying to find quite a few videos on this type of volunteer trip that I'm doing, and I could only find a few videos that would tell me about Nepal once they were there. And I thought actually sometimes it's a preparation that you might need a little bit of help with. So it's actually, I went through the company called Global Work and Travel, but the actual volunteer company is called Idex. And if you wanted to find out the type of place that you'd be staying, those videos are definitely on YouTube, and it shows you the whole of the inside, where you'd be staying, the kitchen, the lounge area looks really, really cool. Very much like a hostel really, but at least you're sort of all together in the same boat. But yes, so the one thing that I wanted to have a look at was being very prepared, and they do give you plenty of information, which is great, but sometimes it's a lot to process. But the one thing out there in Nepal, which is where I'm going, I'm actually going to Kathmandu, the main city, and I know sometimes with the drinking water it's not good, and it can sometimes give you an upset tummy. Sometimes it's difficult to avoid. You might forget if you have a salad or a cocktail. So I've got quite a few things which I'll just show you here. So I've got diarylites there. That's obviously if you have an upset tummy. I've also got diarrhea relief, just in case, and quells. Now this is actually for travel sickness, which I'm sure a lot of you know you're supposed to take before you actually start traveling. Otherwise it's completely useless and it won't work. When I was in the Philippines, we were on a 6-hour drive, and it was a very small bus, and the roads are so windy, and apparently some places in Nepal are very similar. And even though I don't actually get travel sickness, I did at these times. So I thought I'm just going to be prepared, because there's nothing worse than thinking I'm going to be sick, and we've got 5 hours to go. So not particularly what I fancied. Another thing is sometimes when you stop off at little cafes and things, they don't necessarily have particularly nice toilets. And I know in Nepal they don't have any toilet roll. But luckily, in the volunteer house, because they are used to a lot of Europeans going over there, they do actually have toilet roll, and then you just have a little bin that you put it in. So that's fine. But when you're out and about, there won't be. So I got lots of little packets of little tissues. I was going to take lots of toilet roll with me, but it does take up quite a lot of space, and I thought these were better, and they were actually thicker as well. I also made sure that I bought lots of mini little bags with me, just in case when you're in the toilets there's no bin to put the toilet roll, and of course you're not allowed to put it down the actual toilet. So definitely recommend taking lots of little, I know they're plastic, which is a bit annoying, but you can always wash them at the end and then sort of reuse them. So just when you're out and about, make sure you take a few bags just so you can put your toilet roll in and take back with you to dispose carefully. Also, if I'm out and about and maybe I want to wash my face but I don't really have anything, I do have wet wipes. Always got to have wet wipes into traveling. But I did manage to find these little things. So what they are, all you need to do is just put a little bit of water on them, and then they expand into like a mini towel. So I thought those will always be quite nice, you know, if you wanted to freshen up on your face, or even if you just wanted to, you know, sort of wash your hands or anything. And I've got some soap flakes with me as well, because obviously taking a soap bar along with you, you've got to have a separate container, and sometimes it can leak and it's not great. So the soap flakes you can actually get online. I actually got them from Wish. I actually got these from Wish as well. So they do have some quite good things. Now I also got some water purifying tablets. Now, luckily in the actual volunteer house, they said they've got filtered water. So it might be an idea just to take a water bottle with you and then top up before you go. But obviously on the weekends when we're away, we're staying away, we won't be able to do that. So just in case you don't find a place to buy lots of bottled water from, it might be quite good to have these tablets with you. And I think you pop it in and you leave for about 30 minutes, just sort of shake it around, and then hopefully you should be good to go. Now, again, I couldn't find them in any shops. I had to get those online, but I think I did find them on eBay. But all of these are very cheap, about maybe $1.99, all of these bits and pieces that I found. Another thing, I wasn't sure whether I actually wanted to take my phone with me. It's a very nice phone. So what I decided to do was just borrow my mum's, I'm not going to say crappy phone, but quite basic. I think you can actually still get the internet on here, which I was very impressed with. But I just thought this is pay as you go, which means it's unlocked. If your phone isn't unlocked, you're going to definitely need to make sure, because you're going to need to get a calling card when you're out there, which apparently you can buy from the airport or some of the local shops that are around there. And then I thought, I'm just going to have to take an actual camera with me. Can you believe it? I thought I don't have a camera because I'm always using my phone. But luckily my sister has lent me a little camera to use, so that is perfect. Also an adapter. It was a bit of a strange adapter. I went through all the ones I had, and of course none of them matched, but apparently there are 2 or 3 different connections that you can actually have out there, which just makes it even more confusing. But again, I managed to ask round and I managed to get this one, borrow this one, which is the 2-tonged one, which looks very similar to the ones in the photos. So fingers crossed it will actually work. But as I said, in the volunteer house, apparently they have lots of things. You know, they're used to Europeans coming over, so I think they might have a few things left over, or hopefully another traveller will have something similar. Another thing is always take your hairdryer. They do not have any hairdryers in the volunteer house, so I definitely made sure that I packed that. But as you can see, I have braided my hair before I went because I want this to last at least a week. I really just don't want to do anything with it for a very, very long time. But obviously I will pack my do-rag to go over and cover it at night time as well. Just a few things about safety, which I'm sure it's pretty much common sense. Anywhere you go, you've got to be careful. You know, if I was walking down London, I'd make sure I had people with me. I was in a large group. I wouldn't walk on my own down a dark alleyway. And Idex says exactly the same thing. Obviously, just be vigilant, make sure you're safe. Another thing is apparently don't take any unknown local taxis, always book them through an app. Now, I know I've got a basic phone, but luckily it does just about have the internet on it. But I think where we'll be walking, if we're out on our own, I think hopefully we'll only be roughly around 20-minute walk from the volunteer house. I think actually they do. They have Uber out there, and I can't remember the name of the other company, but there is one other one. So you can always download the app before you go. And there is a curfew on the volunteer house. I think it's 11 p.m. I think that's during the weekdays. That might slightly change on the weekends because obviously if you want to go out. Oh yes, and the one thing that I wanted to find out was sort of like a typical day of what we'd be doing. So I went for the childcare program. So I'll be working in a school with children and sort of teaching them. I think I've got kindergarten, so I've got 3 to 4 year olds. And I think they said sort of the day to day. I think breakfast is 8 o'clock. And then we will have transport that takes us over to the school. I'm not quite sure which one I'm working at just yet. And then I think we have an hour for lunch. And then after the school day, I think we have an hour to sit down and go through the day and plan lessons for the following day. Also, I think in the volunteer house, they do actually have the internet, and I think you can print off a few things. So I might print off a few pictures of, let's say, London. If I have a big London bus or Big Ben that they might be able to colour in, that might be quite fun for them. And I wanted to print off some rhymes and some songs that we can actually do together as well. But the main thing in Nepal are the momos, which sound amazing. I've looked at lots of videos and they're basically dumplings, but I think there was over 15 different dumplings that you can get there. You can get savoury ones and sweet ones. And yeah, it's quite funny. I went to a restaurant here, a Nepalese restaurant. I thought, well, I'll try the food and see what it's like. And I had some momos, and I think about 4 of them cost me £6.50. Apparently, when you're out there, it'll cost you probably 50p for 4 of them. In fact, it probably is less than that. So I'm definitely going to stuff my face for 3 weeks. That's how long I'm going for.
Hello, so I'm now in Nepal. I do apologise about the quality of the video. I didn't want to bring my fairly new, expensive phone with me, so I thought I'd bring a slightly older model just in case it gets lost or stolen. I don't really mind about it, but yeah, it does mean the video might not be quite as amazing. So yes, I've been here for 2 days already. I was a bit worried when I was at the airport because my bag was like the last one to come out. And I thought, gosh, whoever's waiting for me out the front, they've probably been waiting there over an hour. So I did get worried that no one would be standing there waiting. But there was someone with the Idex placard. So that was quite good. And then he basically called this sort of taxi car to come and pick us up. Definitely wear your seatbelt because because the driving is quite interesting out here. So there are no traffic lights, which as you can imagine makes it a little bit interesting. And people would stop. You just have random people walking in the middle of the road as well. So it was a bit peculiar. I'm surprised that we didn't crash at least 5 times. Although our driver did know exactly what he was doing. He's obviously used to it. And, oh yeah, another thing at night time. As I said, I'm here in February, so it's a little bit colder. So I definitely recommend maybe bringing along another blanket. I was wearing 2 jumpers last night. And I've got some socks on as well. So yes, it does get a little bit chilly.
Yeah, so you have to walk clockwise, right?
Yeah, you have to go clockwise.
And those things you have to do clockwise. Have you done one of those yet?
No, I'll go
Oh,
through
they're
them.
quite
We've come back.
some things that I would recommend, and I think this will be for most programmes, no matter sort of what country you're in. What they decided to do on the weekends when you've got your spare time is take you on excursions all over the place, which was, you know, wonderful and great. But don't forget, you don't actually have to go on all of them. It got to the point where, you know, we were sort of exhausted by the end of the second week, and we were like, actually, I haven't seen much of Kathmandu. We'd like to kind of chill and relax and just have a look around the city that we're currently already in. So we just mentioned, you know, it's like, we don't really have to go on, you know, these things, right? They were like, no, you know, it's up to you. And you know, that was very beneficial for us, because these trips out weren't like an hour away. Chitwan, I think, was a 6 or 7 hour coach ride, and it's not a nice smooth flat surface that you're driving on. You know, it is bouncy the whole time for 6 hours, and then we got off after this amount of time to then go on a safari, which was also really incredibly bumpy. So for another 3.5 hours, you know, by the end of it, honestly, I felt like all of my insides had just been stuck in a blender, and I felt like I was actually having to hold myself together, and you do feel a bit sick. And I thought, I don't really want to be doing that again. So yes, one weekend we went into the city. There was already a little festival that was going on, which was interesting, actually. I'll put a video here in a second, because I thought, oh, this is going to be great. I love looking at different dance themes. I love looking at, you know, what they wear in different countries, and oh, they're going to wear a mask. This is going to be really cool. And it actually just turned out to be really quite creepy. It's something you'd get from a horror movie, or maybe if you were on some kind of crazy acid trip and it went really, really wrong, because the masks were terrifying and the music was pretty scary as well. So I think we were expecting some kind of summertime feel, kind of, you know, happy clappy music or something, and it definitely wasn't that, but it was fascinating to watch nonetheless. at the end of the school day, sometimes they would feed me as well, which was wonderful. At the very end of my 3 weeks, the teachers, all said, do you want to sit down and we'll have some chai? So that's very popular out there, which is so bad for my diet because it's got dairy in, it's got sugar in, and it's got black tea, which are all the things I'm not supposed to have. But obviously I wasn't going to say no to them, and it tastes wonderful. So we're all having, a little chit chat, and it was so amazing because the teacher came to me, she said, thank you so much for really immersing yourself in the programme. I was like, yeah, of course. She's like, well, not many volunteers do that. And I said, what do you mean? They were like, a lot of them would come to the classroom and then they would just sit in the corner and they wouldn't really interact very much with the children. Some might just be writing in a notebook or a diary or something, or maybe on their phone or something. And I thought, oh, why would you sign up to a volunteer trip knowing that you're possibly going to work with children in a school and then not do that? But I wasn't sure if they were trying to maybe they wanted to add it to an application form and it would look good to say, oh, I went on a volunteer trip. I don't know. But yeah, I would say if this isn't something you've done before, maybe you haven't even worked with children before. I mean, I'm lucky my sister has 4 children. So I've, I've been surrounded by children a lot. And of course, all of my events, I'm working with children. So if you haven't really had kids in your life before and you don't really know how to talk to them or how to even approach them, you might find this a little bit more difficult to really immerse yourself into it. So I know that there's a few other things like teaching English to adults as well. So after our day of school, we would come back and we'd lesson plan. And that's actually part of our programme, so that you'd go in and you wouldn't just be like, I don't know what to do with these children. You had access to a computer. We were able to go into the office when we needed to and print off a few bits and pieces. So I printed off like loads of animals, and then next to the animal they would have to say what country they think it was from, and then I would leave the animal blank, which meant that they were able to colour it in as well. So just little things like that it made it a bit more interesting for them, but also it wasn't overly complicated to teach. So there's something that I recommend doing if I have another volunteer trip. It's just making a scrapbook, because I love making scrapbooks. So it was quite lovely that they actually got a lady to come in and teach us how to put a sari on. And we also had some henna done as well, which was wonderful. And I think there was one morning we had yoga. This was my lovely lollipop school with all of the children. Loved playing football with them. And they had apparatus that they could play on as well. This was a fantastic actual stage that was outside that they used for, I think, quite a few different things, including Sports Day, which I've got a couple of photos of at the end. So these are my children. So we've got Yodin, who was always very, very smart and always had her work done before the others. And I made a little hair clip for her. We've got Jolene. We've got Larkshay. We've got Spars. He was a little terror, but he was absolutely amazing. His personality is wonderful, and you couldn't help but laugh at him. And we've got Ozil. And all together, they were wonderful together. They really were fantastic. These were children from another class. And then this was the sports day that we had. The girls, every time I sat down, as you can see, they loved to braid my hair. They were actually very, very good at braiding. They already knew what to do. And they asked me to come up with a game. So instead of pin the tail on the donkey, it was pin the tail on a badly looking cow. That was quite fun. And this is what I got. As you can see, I was getting very emotional because they bought me a cake and it actually said, "We will miss you, Lucy," which was just absolutely fantastic. Not what I expected. I had actually already bought some things for the kids. I think they were just little cakes that I gave out to all of them. And this is my favourite part because one of the teachers helped put this together. Thank you for being a part of Lollipops Preschool. Wish you all the best for your coming days. You will be missed. Lots of love, Lollipops family. And then I don't know if the teachers asked them to or they just decided to, but here is just a few bits and pieces that the kids made for me. This is from my roommate. So when she first arrived, she had never been travelling before and she was very, very nervous. And I said, oh, you know, don't worry, we're going to have a great time. And actually it was only me and her in that one room, which was lovely. And I think she was 18 when I actually met her in 2020. And I thought, well, gosh, you know, I mean, I didn't go travelling until I was 19 and it can be a little bit, you know, nerve-wracking. And we just had the best time. You know, and I wanted to make sure that she felt comfortable and was happy, and she was already super confident and she got into the sort of travelling way of life very, very quickly. So anyway, I wrote her a little letter just to say, you know, you've been amazing, you know, you're an incredible person, blah, 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 blah. And then unbeknown to me that she had also written me a letter. And she was like, don't open it until you get to the airport. And that nearly made me cry as well. And as I said before, we're still in touch and we're hopefully going to go on another trip together. And here is the letter, which I think I'm actually going to read out. So on the front of it, it said, do not read until you get to the airport, which was great because I had quite a long wait. So this was something to keep me company. Lucy, today the sun is up and shining bright. The fog has finally lifted. I have thought long and hard about what I was going to write, and honestly, I still don't know. I don't know where to start either, but let's go for it. The past 3 weeks have seemed like 3 years. I never thought some random crazy girl from Kent would have made such an impact on my life. And being that all this has been in another country too, I think I've been super lucky. At the start of this trip, I cried a lot. Too much, thinking I was going to be alone. I have never been so wrong in my life. We have shared so many giggles, even the grumpiest man alive would be in fits too. You have taught me so much as a person and to always be kind even in the darkest times. I will forever be grateful for Idex for pairing me with an incredible woman and a stunning person. Never stop smiling, never stop being wild, and most importantly, don't forget me. Kent is only an hour and 45 minutes away. I will find you and I will hug you. Lots of love and best wishes for the upcoming adventures. Your crazy blue-haired roommate. Oh. And as you can imagine, it's not what I expected. So I was sort of in the airport with so many people around, getting really emotional. So we now have the story time. What happened at the end of my trip? So the main sort of ways to get around Nepal, the normal taxis, or you've got like the moped taxis. And it's quite interesting because there aren't really any signs on the floor. You know, usually you've got like white lines, so you sort of know where to be or where to go, and then you've got arrows on the ground, and you know, you've got it might say London on the ground as well in paint and stuff. Nothing, absolutely nothing. So when you come to a roundabout, you've actually got someone stood in the middle who's telling people where to go. And it's quite interesting because you just think, how on earth does this actually work? Because they're going so fast all the time as well. So there are quite some hairy moments sort of at the back of the taxi. But I decided to take a moped once, and we were just going around the city, which was beautiful. And then we decided to go a little bit further out. And just as we were getting out of the actual busy, congested area, a taxi pulled out and we went straight into it. And it's funny because moments before, my mind was just thinking, I am having such an incredible time and I feel amazing. I don't care what happens next. And that's actually what I said in my head. And I think because I was in this relaxed state, that I almost in slow motion saw that this taxi was coming out and I knew that we were going to collide with it. And so I didn't tense up. I kind of relaxed and just went, okay, so this is going to happen. I'm not going to panic about it. And I think that's probably what helped me not to hurt myself as much, because I went over the bonnet. The driver went towards the left. And I think also because it was sort of winter time, I was wearing my big puffer jacket, which meant that I got no scrapes or anything on my arms, and my head didn't even hit the ground at all. It was sort of just my side and both of my legs. So I think I fell on my side. So this leg went on the ground and then the top leg hit that one, which meant that this one was feeling a little bit sore. And when I rolled over, I did think, I don't know if I can walk on this immediately. Anyway, the driver came over, picked me up and took me to the side. And, you know, by that point, I had a huge crowd of people around me, which was really lovely. And there was a lady there and I was like, oh my gosh, my hand, I felt like one of my fingers hurt a lot. And she was just stroking it. She was just rubbing it to make sure that there was blood circulation. I mean, obviously none of them understood what I was saying. I couldn't understand what they were saying, but we didn't need to in that moment. They had obviously seen what had happened. And so they were just sort of making sure I was okay. And I think there was about 5 of them that all sort of picked me up together to see if I could walk. And I was like, oh, you know what? I can hobble around right now. I think this is okay. And out there, no one really has like insurance. You don't have like a little driving license either. No one has anything. So it kind of gets dealt with on the spot. So you have like, I don't know if you call them traffic police. They were sort of called over and you talk it out in that moment. And then once you walk away, that's it. You won't hear from them again. In fact, they won't even have those types of details to probably call up or whatever. It's just sorted on the spot. Which in a sense, I was like, that's kind of good. So I was sort of the go-between because some people spoke English and some didn't. They spoke another language, not English. So anyway, it was quite good because I was able to say, oh, this is what they're trying to say to you and this is what they're trying to say to you. So we somehow managed to come to an agreement. Luckily, there was a garage just around the corner, so the driver was able to sort of take the moped over there to get fixed. And at this point, I was thinking, yeah, okay, no, I don't need to go to the hospital or anything because I can walk. But it must have been about half an hour later where I looked down and my knee was twice the size that it was actually supposed to be. And I thought, oh, this is getting a little bit more sore. And I'll put a picture here. When I got home, this is the bruise that I got. In fact, I think they got worse as the days went on and the colours grew more intense. It seems to be okay now. I still have to do quite a lot of yoga because if I'm on the floor, if I'm kneeling for too long and I get up, I feel like an old woman and I have to sort of massage it a little bit. So yes, if you do go out there, just be warned. They are mental when it comes to driving. I mean, it really does look absolutely chaotic. And it was the same in the Philippines as well. They're just, whizzing past constantly. I don't even know if that Idex house is necessarily there anymore because during the pandemic, they obviously had to shut down. So it might be that they've moved, but I know that they do lots of different programs in lots of different countries. And I really liked the company itself. They were always, really, really helpful right from the beginning. Any details or anything that I was worried about, being picked up at the airport and all that sort of thing, they really talk you all the way through it. We had a little video chat beforehand. In fact, there was a group chat at some point as well. So yeah, it's not like you just sign up to this and you feel like you're left alone. When it came to Idex, it was the one company that I thought, I really am happy and I feel comfortable, to go with them because there's so many out there and I really wasn't sure what one was going to be good for me or suit me. And I thought they were absolutely fantastic. So I think in the future I might go with them again. I just don't know which country just yet.